What's going on, Predators? I just wanted to talk to you a little bit and do a follow-up with the video that I did about shooting my bow without a peep. It's been kind of an interesting process because it's been a learning process for me as well. It's something I kind of just dove into with both feet. I guess now I want to talk about whether or not I regret that choice. So, first thing I wanted to talk about before we get started is thank you guys for subscribing and liking the videos and all this stuff. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but please do like and subscribe to the video if you enjoy this kind of stuff. You can see we've got some new merch stuff in the Teespring shop there. So if you want to get your own Apex Predator Outdoors gear, go check it out there at the Teespring link that is in the description below. So now that I've been shooting this way a little bit while, and I even took my bow to the Total Archery Challenge, and I shot at the Total Archery Challenge with no peep. So if you don't know what that is, the Total Archery Challenge is basically an outdoor event where you go and you shoot your bow at various distances, anywhere from 20 to over 120 yards. And you're basically just trying to test your skills whenever you're shooting at animals that are inside of brush, hidden into the trees and things like that. It gives you definitely a challenge. It's challenging you to become a better shot, a better 3D archer, or even a better hunter by being able to make tough shots in high pressure situations as far as the shot goes and what you have to work with. So I went into this and I had a couple of arrows that I had damaged during practice just from trying to take some long shots and things like that. And so I left a couple of arrows at home, didn't take them to the event. So I ended up taking about 10 of my Victory VAP SS arrows with me. Put a little video up here above somewhere to show you the build video that I did for that. I took 10 of these arrows with me, and I left with 4. So yeah, I lost several arrows here. The main two things that really affected me in the Total Archery Challenge was one, if you go back to the video again, I'll put a link up here for it about whenever I was talking about originally about shooting without a peep sight. One of the things I told you that you had to be accurate with was your anchor points, right? So whenever I got there the first day, it was raining, there was mist everywhere, and I just went in anyways. Soaking wet, all my gear was wet, my arrows were wet, my bow was wet, and that's where part of the problem came in. So I guess with being wet and shooting my bow or something like that, I did a poor job of serving in my nose button that I had put on there. I just changed it out like 2 days before the Total Archery Challenge, hoping to use one of the new 3D printed nose buttons that I've got. I realize in this video this is probably going to look like a little bag of crystal meth or something like that, but these are a bunch of little clear nose buttons that I printed. But anyways, so I printed these nose buttons right before the challenge, and I put them on there. I replaced the old one that I had on there, which was working great, by the way. And I don't think I served them in very well. So then whenever my bow is wet and I'm shooting out there, the serving that I had put on there to hold my nose button in place came off. Then what ended up happening, about 3 holes in, I didn't notice the serving was gone, and my nose button had slid up. Or it was actually down, I think. I can't remember. Anyways, it just slid down, I think, a couple of inches. So that means that the point at which I'm anchored now has gone this way, right? So my bow is now pointing down more because that nose button had slid down the string. So I ended up missing a shot. And I was like, well, that was really weird. That was a 31-yard shot on a rabbit target, a white rabbit up against a wooded background. I thought, man, there's no reason I should have missed that shot so bad. It was like 3 inches below the target. And I started looking at all my gear. Everything was tight. And then I realized the serving had come off of that nose button. I spent the rest of the day there trying to kind of figure out, and I think I did pretty good for the fact that that nose button had come off so far and moved so far, and I didn't know exactly where it was supposed to be. I did pretty good. I just basically ended up just sliding the nose button out of the way, and I was really heavily relying on that IQ defined bow sight with the retina lock technology. I was relying on that very heavily to make sure that my shots were lined up. I did pretty good overall. I lost about the same amount of arrows as everybody in my group. I did steadily better as I got through the first day of the challenge. I shot the Leupold course in San Antonio first. That was the 11 o'clock, but I shot the Leupold course first, and I think it was a really good idea to do that because it gave me some good practice. The Leupold course only goes up to about 70 yards, a little over 70 yards. It was 72 or 74. So great practice. A couple things I found out though that I was really kind of prepared me for day two. One is they're not all easy shots. They're not just sitting out in the open. There was one shot that was just absolutely ridiculously difficult, and that was a bear. It was a grizzly bear or something that was about 45 yards through the woods, and there was about 6 trees in the way, and so literally all I could see was between a little V. I could see some bear vitals at about 45 yards away. So there were some really difficult shots in there. But one thing I really learned was that, again, I've said this before too, but I want to reiterate that having your equipment tuned is a really big deal, especially if you're going to go do something like Total Archery Challenge. If you're just shooting in the backyard, unfortunately, you can get a little bit more carried away or a little bit more sloppy with your settings and everything. But whenever you go do something like the Total Archery Challenge, and this is kind of a pitch for them, I'm not paid by them, but this is a pitch for Total Archery Challenge because it puts you in a unique and very challenging situation where you have to make sure that your gear is dialed in to the point where you know that if a mistake was made, that it was your gear, or sorry, that it was you, not your gear, right? So you want to make sure that, okay, if something goes on here, if I miss this shot or I'm hit high or I hit low, I want to know that it was me and it was not a piece of my gear, my bow, my stabilizer setup, my nose button that went bad on me. So anyways, I learned a lot, guys. I really recommend it. Now it comes to this, shooting Peepless. Do I recommend it? I still recommend it. I think some of the guys that I was shooting with there were actually kind of blown away that I was shooting without a peep. They didn't even think about it. They're like, wow, that's really crazy. The other thing that was actually a really big challenge for me was these arrows that I was using. So I love these big, heavy 580 grain arrows that I use. But when you're trying to reach out to 120 yards, like back-to-back targets, or 100 and 120 yards consistently, there's a little bit different story, right? So the way I had my bow set up and the way I had it tuned after the first day of shooting on the practice range at the Total Archery Challenge, I was reaching out at 85 yards. I was using my last pin. 100 yards, I was using my bubble, or actually no, 185, 90 yards, I was using the top of my bubble, and then at 100 yards, I was literally putting the laser on the bottom of the sight on the target and just praying. I just literally draw, anchor, put that little dot of the laser on there and fired, and it was just spraying and praying basically. But what was really interesting though was I actually hit the 100-yard target both times. So one time it was a moose at exactly 100 yards, nailed it. Wasn't a great shot, but I hit the target. Next one was a lion at, I think it was like 107 yards or something like that. Same thing, bang, nailed it. Got it in the leg, but hey, I hit the target. It was like in the shoulder or something like that. So it was really, really cool, really good challenge. But you know what? It's something that's changed. Is I'm actually going to rebuild my arrows a little bit, because whenever I shot that buck, I'll put a link to the video up here, to the hunting video I had where I shot that buck and he died within like 3 or 5 yards. Whitetails are pretty much, whitetail and turkey are going to be the things that I hunt the most. And so I think that going back down to like a 510 grain arrow, I think is going to be really good. I think it's going to be able to get me a little bit more speed out of it, a little bit more distance. So I'm going to redo that. I'm going to set it up with my new arrows that I get in. I'm going to set them up at about 510 grains or so. I'll see exactly what it comes out to after the build is done. We'll calculate it. I'll go ahead and do a video on that, or might even do a live stream with it. So if you guys want to see a arrow building live stream, let me know in the comments below. But anyways, Total Archery Challenge, guys. I had a lot of fun. The big thing about it is make sure that your equipment is dialed in. So if you've got a nose button, if you've got your D-loop, make sure your D-loop is tight. Make sure your stabilizers are screwed in properly. Make sure all your gear is super tight. And this is the key, is you want to make sure that when you fail, You miss a target, you miss a shot on an animal, that failure was you, and it was maybe something in your head and it was not your equipment. So make sure everything is tight, make sure everything's clean, and you'll be good to go. So to wrap up, do I still recommend shooting with the Peep sight here 2021 after shooting the Total Archery Challenge? 100%. I was proselytizing to it with people about, I was talking to some of the people I was shooting with, and they were saying that, yeah, man, I've suffered from target panic as well. It was hard. I still kind of do sometimes, especially on an animal. So I heard a lot of different things from different people, and I recommended, like, hey, next time you're going to change something on your bow, next time you're going to get a new string, try this. Tell the archery shop, don't put a peep in there yet. Instead, put a nose button. Okay, put a nose button and a kisser button or something like that. Find yourself a combination that allows you to have consistent anchors and practice those consistent anchors so that you can shoot without a peep. I recommend just trying it out. If you don't like it, you can always do this. Go back to the shop, say, hey, I have a peep here. Most places are going to be cool enough that they will put your peep sight in the bow or in the string without charging you a bunch of extra money. So anyways, guys, if you have questions, please, I want to continue the conversation below. I always check the comments, always check and see what you guys are talking about. So keep the conversation going down below. Tell me if you tried it. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me if you didn't like it down in the comments below, guys. So again, I just want to thank you guys for watching the video, liking, subscribing. As always, guys, look down below. I got links for all my different social media things. Follow me on Instagram. If you go to my Superfans page and the link below, you can see that it actually shows not only all my YouTube posts that I do, but it also shows whenever I post to different things like Bitchute. It also shows when I post to Instagram and all that from one location. Go to the Thingiverse where I have the files for you to download. You can actually 3D print your own nose buttons of mine. And other stuff, you can 3D print your own maker coin for this, for the APOD channel. But guys, I thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, keep defying the odds.